Today I'm talking about how the energy is supporting us to getting practical and the right use of power. How to take what's coming through you, what you're leading with, and bring it down into practical form so you can move it out in the world with a great principle that I teach called flow and form. Stay tuned and I'll tell you all about it. Hi, welcome. Premali Guerreri, Vedic astrologer, soul advisor, and business mentor. Today I am talking about the energy of getting practical and the right use of power. It happens to be September of 2019. And the energy that we're going through, the planetary energy, is really calling us to put our attention on these things. But I just want to mention that this is what I'm going to talk about today, about getting practical and how the right use of power in our leadership, and then bringing that down to the details and getting practical with it. That energy is something we can tap in and use at any period of time as far as being a leader, a change maker, a change agent, an entrepreneur, whatever you're here doing in the world and moving that out in the world, any form of leadership. So I want to talk a little bit about the energy we've been through. So the summer has been a little bit up and down, if you hadn't noticed. And what it's been really calling us to do is shake out what's not serving us, what's not working for us, a lot on a mental level. It's been bringing in some new opportunities, and it's been really asking us to let go at a very deep level of what's not really ours to hold, to be, to do in the world. The energy that we are have gone through just recently and are still at the tail end of has a lot to do with our leadership. It has a lot to do with how we use our power, how we perceive power, and who's in power, and what part of us is at power. So I believe in living from the inside out and creating your movement, your business in the world from the inside out. That means being aligned with the source of your being, the divine, God, the universe, the unified field, whatever your words are for that. But having that inner alignment, that soul alignment, inform the work you're here to do in the world, the right use of power, so that you can serve what you're here to serve with your gifts, what your innate divine gifts are, so that you can make the difference that you're here to make. And if each and every one of us, this is my vision, is doing that, what's happening is that we're all taking care of our own sphere. We are all personally growing, we are all spiritually growing, and we all are affecting who we're here to affect, because no matter what, we're all connected and we're affecting each other anyway. And that way we're all personally responsible for our choices, for our energy, for our actions. And then there's very little interference then, if that's the case. So we've have been really needing to come to grips with, our individual power and movement in the world, and having that be just for us, or how are we going to move that out in the world. We've also been faced with some aggression, we've seen some volatility. We've seen definitely volatility in the world. You may have been feeling triggered yourself. We're kind of at the very tail end of that energy, because we've had a lot of planets in Vedic astrology in Leo, and they have been combust the sun. And the problem with that is that the sun's always going to rule, and that can be a good thing. But the other energies don't have an opportunity to really show their energy. And it also means that that the shadow side of leadership and the shadow side of what I call the honorable warrior could have really been at play. Now, as I said, we're coming to the tail end of that, and that's what I really want to speak of is, okay, now that maybe you've had some clarity around maybe the next phase of what you're here to lead, or what it's time for you to step out and lead, whether that's, well, I'm in my career, but it's time for me to write my book, or I know that I I need to take my business and I need to implement and move out into the world this new program, this new idea, this way that I want to serve, that's maybe new and different, maybe very creative, that's been percolating in you. Maybe it's just a new way of being and how you are going to show up in your mission and your movement. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you are going to infuse that into the career you already have. And I know for some of you, because I've been talking to you, that some of you are just, you've been trying to get this business going on the side, and you have been in a career for a while, and you feel drained, you feel like you're selling your soul at some level, and you feel like you don't have the energy to move your passion and your purpose forward in the world. And you've got to come to terms with freshly, not what you thought you were here to lead. What are you here to lead now? And you've got to get inspired about that. You've got to get passionate about that. And then we have to do what's so very important, and not all of us like to do this, but then we have to break it down into the details, the steps on how we're going to do it. And I know for you may be in that category of folks that's where it gets really hard. It feels overwhelming, and you'll never be able to put everything together in order to move things forward. All we need to do is take one step at a time and keep taking those steps and keep moving forward, and keep tuning in for the inner guidance to make sure that the steps we are taking are completely aligned with our passion, our purpose, our gifts, so that what we're moving forward, we are actually passionate about. So the energy that we are in right now is calling you to take whatever has been percolating in you, whether it's just sort of getting re-inspired about what you are doing in the world and what you are leading, or whether it's completely new for you, or you're changing, any one of those. And it's time to break it down and bring it down to earth, down into the details. Now, we always have to do that process no matter what the energy is. When we take an idea and we bring it down into our hearts and we get inspired about it, and what are we going to do with this, and how are we going to serve, how's it going to serve us, how's it going to serve the world. And then we have to kind of get into the nitty gritty of it and create some structure around it, and make it so we've got channels for the energy to flow. The energy that we're in currently with this at this particular time of the year. I always think of this in September as the new year. Actually, we're coming out of the expansiveness of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and we're going into what's typically a more routine period of time. And sometimes that routine can feel really great, and sometimes it can feel kind of constraining. So it's very important that as you start to bring your ideas into form, down to the details, or we're turning this corner from summer into the autumn time, and it's time to get back into structure, that you will really embrace this structure, schedules, routines, if you are willing to create it anew, if you're willing to stay very present with it and tune in and be able to create the form, the schedule, the structure that's actually going to support who you are right now and what you're moving out in the world right now. If you're trying to do it from somebody else's structure, from an old paradigm for yourself, because let me tell you, our paradigm is changing all the time. And as you change your paradigm, you help the collective paradigm change. If you're feeling contracted and like, I just don't, I don't want to do it that way, then it's not your way to do it. And you really need to tune in and find the way for you. In fact, that's what I teach in my Sacred Wealth Business Academy. We always are, I'm giving you lots of tools to work with, but those tools also center around giving you the right questions to tune in to find out what's your way of doing this. One thing that happens too, as far as bringing our ideas into form and creating detail and structure about it and tuning in around that even includes our self-care, our personal care, how our spiritual practice. It can get kind of dull or flat, and we need to relook at it, and especially with the seasons and the energy, and tune into, okay, now what is the structure that I need in order for me to get aligned every day on a daily basis? And that can shift and change over time. I'm noticing now, as the light, I get up very early, 5:30 in the morning, and that's when I do my meditation practice. That's when I do, and then I follow that by doing something, some journaling. I use the Sacred Wealth Code journal, and then what I need to do for my physical body, and then I usually move into my most creative project. So, but with the darker mornings, I'm noticing there's a shift. There's a shift there, and so I'm noticing that I'm shifting things around a little bit. One of the things I'm doing is I'm still sitting for meditation first, but I've also switched to getting outside earlier for my walk, and because it happens to wake me up and invigorate me sooner in those darker mornings than if I leave that till the end and do my yoga first. So anyway, we all sort these things and shift them around. So if anything's feeling flat for you, your business, your spiritual practice, your eating schedule, I don't care what it is. If it's feeling flat, it needs a tweak, and you need to tune in and find out what the tweak is. So let me tell you how to do that. The energy of where a lot of the planets are now is in Virgo, and this is Vedic astrology, the sidereal zodiac. And Venus and Mercury have just moved into Virgo, and then Mars is going to join, and then the Sun is going to join by the end of the month. So that's a lot of energy in focusing on the details, bringing things down to earth, getting into the nitty-gritty of things. But here's the key: it has to be practical. It's all about making it practical and bringing it down to earth, not building from the earth up, but coming down from the inside down into the earth. Now, I teach a way of creating and supporting your creations called form and flow, or structure and flow. It's really based on a masculine feminine principle. If you have just flow, think of a river as just flow. That means that it has no riverbanks and it's just spilling everywhere. If you have the form of some riverbanks, that form of those riverbanks is going to help guide that flow, to the next creek or river or down to the ocean or wherever it's going. The same with your ideas. Now, they work in tandem and they work together. This is something I also teach in my Sacred Wealth Business Academy. I'm not going to go fully into it right now, but I want to give you enough so that because I know you see this reflected in nature. Is it the form that informs the flow, or the structure that informs the flow, or is it the flow that informs the structure? We could also break it down into your calendar. You have a calendar, and if you put in your calendar, obviously appointments you have, and when you're working on things and such, you've got a structure. Sometimes we can think of a structure or a form as being contracting or confining, especially the feminine can feel that. But when you really embrace the truth, which is the flow, the energy, the feminine, whether you're a man or woman, and allow that to inform the structure. So that means we're going to tune in first with the divine. We're going to move from the inside out. We're going to include that flow and tune into our hearts and find out what is the structure, what is the form that can best support this flow, best support this idea, best support me creating this new program that you're putting out, best support this new painting that you're ready to paint, best support this book that's ready to pour out of you. What is this next blog, whatever it is that you need to bring down to earth. So you've got to tune in to find the correct, or I want to say the structure that's the best fit for you. And if you're willing to do that, instead of just adopting somebody else's structure or somebody else's calendar, then what it'll give you is a nice framework that you can then flow within. And that actually, the structure and the form actually, helps us to bring it down to earth, right? And then but what do we bring into earth? The idea, the inspiration, the gifts, and that is all the flow. So what I want to invite you to do is be very clear about a few questions here. Number one, what is it that you're leading now? Or how is it that you want to lead differently? Or what is it that's been calling you to actually lead, calling you to bring into form that you've been ignoring, whether it was the book or the blog post or your transformational business. What is it? Okay, so now we need to know what first. That's the first step. Okay, so close your eyes, take a deep breath through your heart. And I just want you to tune into, in the theme of what I'm talking about, what you're wanting to bring it down to earth and what you want to get moving in the world. What are you leading? And it could be as simple as I'm leading my business. I'm leading my career. No, I'm leading this new course that I'm ready to teach. What is it? I'm leading the movement of, helping people in a certain way. What are you here to lead? And just write that down, make a note of that because it's really important. Okay, so now you know what. You've got to know what first. Then you have to know why. Why is it important to you? So tune in. Why is always purpose. I go into that pretty deeply in Your Sacred Wealth Code, the book. Really go into purpose. That why equals purpose. And that gives us the direction, it gives us the vehicle and the direction to go where we're going to go. And there's purpose in everything we do. So ask yourself, just tune in and let the question drop into your heart. Why is this important? Whatever it is that you're here to lead right now, that you're leading new, that you want to find a way to lead new. What is it why is it important? Why? Why is it meaningful to you? Why is that meaningful to you? Maybe it's a new course or new program. I did that with the Sacred Wealth Business Academy, completely revamped it, reorganized it, made a beautiful new member site. And then why it's important to me is because I want it to serve more people. And in order to do that, it was time to reconfigure it so that it was really wonderful and easy and simple to use and really was inclusive of a lot of different people who are trying to bring want to bring their movement, their message out into the world. What is it for you? Why is it important? To me, it's important so that I could serve more people. And then the last question is tune into and close your eyes and just drop into your heart here. And just breathing through your heart will get you there pretty quickly. And just asking your heart, what's the best structure or what's the best form for you to start working with this? What's the best structure? What's the best form for you to start working with this? Is it a course? Is it I just need to calendar time to get my ideas down? Is it I need accountability and I need to set up an accountability date? Is it that I need mentoring? What is it? What is the structure that your heart is calling you to that's going to allow you to be able to start getting this creative energy, this flow into a form, into the details? The next step is, now there can be several steps in that. So that means that the next step might be, so maybe it got on your calendar. Okay, but then we still need to know what kind of form is this. Let's just say you're creating a new course or a book. What kind of form is it going to take? Is it going to be a 150-page book? Is it going to be a 300-page book? Is it going to be an online, an ebook? Is it going to be a print book? Are you going to publish it? All of these are other questions that you can incrementally get to around form goes. But you would just want to start getting your ideas down if you were writing a book, right? And you would want to schedule some time to start to put those ideas down. And then maybe the next piece of form might be an outline. And then you'd work with your outline. And the next piece of form might be starting to work on your actual chapters. So we can take form in stages. And in fact, I love to use the analogy of writing a book whenever we're bringing a project or an idea down to earth. And again, this energy is really supporting you in getting practical about the details. So it just doesn't stay in an idea. So another way that, if you think of this as a book, you want to create an outline, and then create the chapters would be in the outline, just the basic idea of what the chapters are. And then once you get to each chapter, then you can really start to flow within that container, in that structure of that particular chapter. It would be the same as a module, for instance, if it was a program. And in that, it's going to inform you and it's going to speak to you. You cannot think everything out, and that's why you have got to give flow a place to a container to flow in, so that it can actually develop and come down to earth. So I hope this is making sense to you. Then the final piece is coming down to inspired action. And when you come down to inspired action, this is a moment by moment, day by day, step by step with whatever you're working on, tuning in and asking your heart, what's one inspired action, or what's the next inspired action that's going to support your overall project. We came into today with the question of what are you leading and why is that important to you? And then what's the structure? What's the form? Right now you need to start bringing that down to earth. And then what's the one inspired action? So if you have all that and you're every day asking that one inspired action, you are going, and you take that inspired action, that's the key about inspired actions, then you are actually going to be bringing it down to earth. You're going to be tuning in and staying very present with the project and bringing it down in the idea, the movement, whatever it is you're creating. And you'll be doing it on a moment to moment basis. That'll stay very current, very present, and which means that you're connecting with your flow always. If you feel crunchy, if you feel contracted, that means maybe you've slipped over into the edge of perfectionism, which will lead you into procrastination and eventually into overwhelm. And that's when you've gotten too much into the details and the flow has been choked off. So if you get too much into the nitty gritty and the details of things, then things get contracted and they get, and the flow and the creativity shuts off. Now, if you're creating from the ground up, if you're creating from details first, you're going to be in a lot of mental energy. There's not going to necessarily be a lot of flow. You might be able to get a little flow going. And you're going to try and do it all mentally without letting the flow inform it. So I encourage you to start with structures that are more spacious, like a block, like an hour on your calendar to sit down and work on the outline, for instance, if you were writing a book. And then as you get deeper into things, then the structure, the details might be more, there may be more details, but you'll never get into the flow of it, into what you're leading next and shifting and changing and bringing something new about if you get enmeshed in the details first and foremost, because you'll choke off all the flow. So that and I think of flow and form, structure and flow as being masculine and feminine. And the flow is more that feminine side. The structure is more the masculine side. We can have the shadow side of either of those. I'm not going to go all into that now. That's a whole big juicy subject that I also teach about. But here's what you need to know is that those two energies can really support one another. If you have empty structure, that's very hollow, and it'll also just try to get down into the nitty-gritty of the details, and there won't be any juice in it, and there won't be any energy, and it won't move forward. And if you are just have flow, you could have ideas forever, but you never bring it down to earth. Okay, so use this energy that we have this month to help you to get what you have become clear about it, that it's time for you to move forward, that it's time for you to lead, that it's time for you to bring down to earth, and actually bring it down in the way that I talked about, by bringing more form and flow. If perfectionism comes up, you're in the details too much, and you need to take a big step back, get re-inspired, get back in your passion, get back into the flow, and really steep yourself and let yourself get into the flow, and then come back to a structure that will actually serve. If you're too much in the details, you've probably stopped asking yourself about what's the next inspired action step. If things are just fuzzy for you, then what you need to do is really sit with the questions that I led you through a little bit earlier and be willing to just take the first step. Because if you take the first step and the first inspired action, whether the first inspired action is just sitting down during the hour you blocked off to start working on it, then what's going to happen is it's going to start to, you're going to start to communicate. It'll start to inform you. And this will be really, it'll start to bring some practicality around things. You need that structure to help you get out of the fuzz. If you're in overwhelm, which can also happen, that means that you have gotten into the perfectionism and you've procrastinated. And then you feel like you've got this backlog. And then I say step way far back, step away, and come at it fresh. Start with the beginning again, because that'll allow you to come fresh, come new, and stay and keep working simply, as opposed to having your mind be you need to be present instead of having your mind be in the past of the things that you should have already done. Okay, another huge subject, but I just want to give you the framework now to help you to bring whatever it is that you're leading that's new out into the world by using the energy of this great energy we have now to get things down and get them and make them very practical. So even if you're listening to this at a time or watching this at a time where it is not about, the time of the year has shifted, this is always going to be an energy that's there. Is what are you creating new? What are you leading? And the ideas, and how do you bring them down into practicality? And this is a really wonderful way to do that. So what I'd love to hear, and this will be going out on throughout the month, and there's other things going on, but this is the big piece I wanted to bring to you. And so what I want to invite you to do is, it'd be great if you leave a comment about what it is that you're either leading in a new way, or the new thing that you want to lead in the world, or as far as your work goes, or what you want to transition to, and what came up with you with the line of questioning and the inspired action and the structure that came up for you, so that you can really get your flow into creation, basically. All right. So just so much love to you. I look forward to hearing what's up for you, what you're leading new. And remember, everything that you and I and everyone else is willing to do from the inside out and bring our soul work forward, be in integrity with ourselves, continue letting go of what's holding us back, and stretching ourselves to step into what our soul is really calling us to. We're all raising the vibration. We're all raising the frequency. We're all raising the collective, because we are actually one, and we're one big collective. So what you do on a personal level and in your sphere right around you affects the whole in a huge way. To never, never discount that. You are amazing. You are brilliant. You are so gifted. Use your gifts in the most brilliant way. And I hope this has helped you to bring them down to earth. Much love.